So my name is Nana. We have just started to make the news that once I'll take it back to Ghana. So when we start the courtyard, this entire space was a graveyard, the cemetery. I mentioned down in the time that the enslaved African once found dead on his own. These that were thrown into the sea. But then this would be the burial ground for the youth. In 1996, they had excavations here. During the excavations, just 4 marked graves were found. Our presentation here will center on just 4 graves. The first is separated from the only African that was found buried among the Europeans here. His name is Philip. Philip was a native of Ghana, a fant by the name Kweku Jew. Kweku is a name given to a Wednesday born Akande. Here in Ghana, a Monday born, Tuesday is Kobna, Wednesday I am called because I'm a Thursday born one. Right. He was baptized as Christian, even the name Philip. Anglican, corrupted or mispronounced. His father was a local slave merchant, one of the Africans who sold fellow Africans to the Europeans. And through the connections his father had with them, he got a chance to stay here. Philip would read theology and education in Oxford. Age 24, he became the first African to be ordained an Anglican priest. And the next year, he would return to Gold Coast. Here, he served as a reverend minister for 50 years. 50 years, Philip was preaching to an all-European congregation up here. Right underneath him, Africans like himself died. 17th October 1875, Philip died. And history says before his death, treatment for him in the castle changed. Allowances he received was not coming as regular as it used to. Philip would have to be moving out of the castle. Wow! So that he would introduce the natives as to how to read, write, and speak the English language. In Ghana, Western or formal education is actually 5 minutes drive from this castle was the first school in Gold Coast in an order. It's called Philip Calcutta. It's just 5 minutes. Some historians believe Philip was brainwashed. This should explain why an African chose to minister to the youth as his own brothers were dying. To them, though Philip had the skin of an African, he felt European. Taken from Gold Coast just age 11, spent 14 years elsewhere. Perhaps he was reprogrammed. But then some scholars believe 14 years is too short a time for one to totally and completely forget his roots. And I side with them. But indeed, 14 years is too short for one to totally, absolutely forget where it comes from. I met a group of tourists the other time that shared something really interesting with me worth sharing. They told me that today, some Africans traveled to Europe, and barely 2 years they became more European than the Europeans themselves. So to them, 14 years is ample time for an 11-year-old boy to undergo brainwashing. Because today, if a full-grown man after 2 years thinks he's European, how much more an 11-year-old boy was? I told them, in as much as I agree with them, I do not entirely accept it. To me, Philip was supposed to, as a preacher, he had portions, but it was one man against an entire system in here. He could do very little about it. Secondly, his father was a local slave merchant. Right from birth, he was a renter. Do the same thing, he got a chance to study elsewhere. Who was he to come back vehemently to fight the same system he had been profiting from infancy? But to me, the situation he found himself in at the time, he could do very little about the happenings here in the castle. Every 17th October, the Anglican Church here in Ghana, they come here, they gather around this way. They say a mass in none of them. Some believe if not for anything at all, it is through informal Western education because to our post worth celebrating. But to others, like myself, he has never had. Had it not been that the treatment for him in the castle changed, would he have moved out in the first place? So I believe he's not a hero. Some also believe he's not a hero. A hero or not, you decide. I can't decide for you. Some yes, to others.
The main thing is faithful that he gave.
More education and because he would they have reverend who were helping with the scholarship. Anglican Church, the first Anglican Church right up there. They say what? They're Archbishop of not yet. But the Archbishop of the Council has been here once to lead the mass. That tells you how well
just Philip.
Yes, most of it just for him. But then, just like I mentioned, to some of us, he's not a good. Hero or not, we decide. The first year belongs to a soldier, C.B. Whitehead, a lawyer, became an officer in the British Army. Slave trafficking on our coast at the point in time was so plenty. These Europeans were killing themselves for land. I mentioned that the land equals emphasis on exchange had between 5 countries. First view on this land was Portugal. Portugal had elmina castle, the biggest of the 3 castles in Ghana, and it had a fortified trade post here. They would lose elmina to the Dutch. And before they left for Kenya, they abandoned the land. Because even the entire edifice, they lost it. What would they do with just a trade post? Then came Sweden. Sweden stayed here. Sweden was on this land barely 5 years. Denmark kicked them out. Denmark stayed here 4 years. The Dutch took charge. Britain were the fifth to come here, and the last. They would inherit this land in a trade post, and would erect this edifice. Once they took charge, they were not using it to any other. I mentioned earlier, this was purposely architectured for slave trafficking. Put structures in place, secure this edifice from 1664 just yesterday when Ghana became a republic. It is believed that in 1812, in one of the Anglo-Dutch struggles, he was shot dead, aged 38. The medal belongs to a woman, Letitia Elizabeth Snuggle, wife of Captain George McLean, traveled to Gold Coast to visit the husband. 32 months after, she was found dead in the husband's bed. 3 things are said about her death. First, says she came to get to know the husband had an African mistress, a side chick by the name Ellen Banner. Out of jealousy, she decided to spoil herself. Second says no was rather the African mistress to get out with that close. She wanted to see George over herself. She came to the castle, disguised herself as a maid, just to finish her. Third says just like most of the Europeans that died here, she died of malaria. West Africa was once called the white man's India. Some came as short as a week or 2, they died, but they kept coming. Third says just like most of them was malaria that I say 3 things said. The one that the 6 war with you. First, Captain George McLean was in charge of the castle to supervise the closure of the underground passage to mark the end of slave trafficking in this castle. In Ghana, there is a very popular called the Bonds of 1846, signed between Commander Hill and 1880. To Russia, Ghana, 113 years of colonial rule. He was the draft of signed between Commander Hill and the Chiefs. The court system we practice within our West and the home of Africa was introduced to us by him. He's Scottish, but he handed him the first court introduced right up here called 1847, age 46, he died. With a reservoir would have to be in the sun just for some 30 seconds. Let's start. So yes, I like the one that is this is 8 foot wide. This was connected to the roof to have this ring. This is what they used to cook for the enslaved Africans. Give them to drink and smoke before they were sexually abused. Men in the castle were raped before that they had to clean it first. And it's to tell you that the only chance a woman got for a shower in the castle was that she was single out. Imagine 4 months in here, no one finds you attractive enough. 4 months in here without a shower. Still serving its intended purpose. Now connected to the national grid. So it is pipe-borne water we pump here. This is what we use for the washrooms once we shut sports out. Unfortunately, in Ghana, because of indiscriminate illegal mining, it has really affected regular town. So this is what we feed the washrooms with once we shut sports out. Starting in 20 years, we saw them ending south. It still serves its intended purpose, but the source is changed. For those that have seen the Mill State Dungeon, we believe there is a place worse in the castle than the living conditions we saw. As if the dungeons they created was not punishment enough. They created punishment cells for the men they considered rebellious and the women that were not submissive. Let's move to see the kind of punishments.